Spirit 92.9 welcomes you to The Lunch Break with your friends Josh, Jess, and Rachel. Join us as we chat about life, food, faith, and everything in between.
Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of The Lunch Break podcast. We are... What are the balloons?
Whoa.
What was that?
I didn't do anything.
If you can't see what's happening right now, you can go to the Spirit 92.9 YouTube channel.
There were
and
balloons and confetti, and I didn't even do anything.
Jess just figured out on StreamYard, which we use, how to release some balloons onto
What
her
did
screen.
I do? Did I say yay? Yay!
Wait,
Didn't work.
I don't know.
That was cool.
Did you
though.
like...
Know what I did?
Did you
Okay.
clap? Anyways, welcome to the lunch break. What a way to start out season 2.
Yeah.
So we are officially back, and thank you for being patient. We are back, and we're excited to be back. I am Rachel. I'm joined by Josh and Jess, and we are starting out season 2 by talking about something that is happening for a lot of us right now as we enter into fall, school, getting back in session. We're talking about change. So before we start, though, we want to tell you that we started the Lunch Break podcast because we found out we have the best conversations around the lunch table. So we all bring something for lunch and share our recipes with you. So who wants to start with what's in your lunchbox?
I think Josh should start.
Okay.
Okay.
So mine is nothing fancy at all today, but it's a little on the strange side. I was kind of inspired by the Minnesota State Fair, if you've ever gone to that. There's always some strange foods there. And so mine is a strange food combination that I had as a kid. And when people hear it, they're kind of like, what? So here's
very
what I have
intrigued.
for lunch today. I have a peanut butter and pickle sandwich.
Oh, no.
That's the kind of reaction I'm talking about, Jess.
Okay.
Is it deep fried?
It is not deep
stick?
fried. I should have brought like the air fryer.
If
stuck it in
you
there. Ooh,
came to work with a sandwich deep fried, I would be very impressed.
I did not deep fry it, but that might be something to keep in mind for the future. No, I literally have bread and peanut butter and pickles in the other room.
So what is it weird, the combination between the two of them?
I think it's delicious because you've got the sweetness of the peanut butter
Okay.
and then you've got the crunchy saltiness of the pickles. And so that sweet and salty combination I think works. Now, I don't know how much of this is the nostalgia associated with eating it when I was a kid, but I think it's good. And if you're willing to branch out a little bit, it's obviously it's not really a recipe. It's peanut butter, pickles, and bread. But we'll throw that up on the show page just in
Okay.
case you want to try it.
All right. It's easy. We'll
Yeah.
give you
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Jess, what did you bring today?
So what I am loving for lunch is leftovers like all the time. And so I know it's still summer, that we haven't quite hit the cozy food, comfort food season yet, but I have been craving tater tot hot dish. And it's hot dish here in Minnesota, right? And so, I'm going to be rocking some tater tot hot dish leftovers.
Nice.
Yum.
So I brought, it's funny. So I brought a wrap. I don't know how to wrap a burrito though, so it's kind of like a deconstructed wrap, but it's fine. So it's a pesto wrap with like turkey and cheese and tomato and lettuce on it. So
A deconstructed wrap is called a salad.
thank you.
And it kind of is. Yeah.
It's true. I mean, it's in like a tortilla. It's just like kind of
Oh,
falling
okay.
apart, and I
That's
just
fair.
pretend that it's a wrap, but it's not. But it's fine.
Okay.
So if anyone wants to teach me how to wrap a tortilla, that would be great.
I know how to do it. Envelope style. I'll show you sometime.
Okay, great. Awesome. But you can find the recipes that we mentioned on our website, spirit929.com, in the recipe box.
Or you can just make Josh's sandwich from memory because it's 3 ingredients.
It's very easy and delicious.
So we're talking about change today, and there's a lot of change happening. We are officially getting into fall. Pumpkin everything is happening
No.
right now. Yes, I'm here for it. So as we talk about change, what does that word bring up in you, the emotions that come with it? Jess, do you want to start?
Anxiety. Anxiety, uncertainty. There's a tinge of excitement depending on what the change is. But yeah, I get a little anxious around change because I'm a creature of habit. like when they change my grocery store around, I'm not cool with it. You know, I get all anxious because I can't find all the things I'm looking for. Please don't do that, grocery stores. But yeah,
Grocery stores, if you're listening, don't change stuff.
yeah, anxiety with a tinge of excitement. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, sometimes there's some melancholy around change and some sadness around change, especially in the fall season. And I love fall in some ways, but there's always sort of that sense that something is ending because it is kind of a transition between summer and winter. And so, you know, as you see the leaves start to fall off the trees and things like that, sometimes I just sense a melancholy in the air, and change is something that sometimes does produce that in me. When things end, when maybe even when a new thing begins at times, because every time you're starting something new, you're ending something else. And so I think there is a certain sadness that I associate with change.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think, for me, change does bring, like you were saying, Josh, a lot of that melancholy. It's the ending of something, but then the beginning of something. There's just so many emotions that come with change. And I think I can say this for all of us. We have had seasons in our life where we have felt that transition of ending something, going into something new. And there can be a lot of anxiety that comes with that change. And I'm thinking of, there have been a lot of specific times in my life where I'm thinking of college. I'm thinking of when I graduated college and then moved to Florida for 3 years. Those were times where I was leaving something that I was so incredibly proud of and I loved, and going into something new, which anytime you go into something new, it's scary. It makes me think of all of the kids that are going back to school, the anxiety that comes with starting in a new grade or starting college. There are so many different feelings that come with that. It's an excitement, but it's also a fear. But change can also be really, really beautiful. And I think of fall, which is my favorite season that we're in. And it is a way that the earth literally, lets go of things in the past, but it's absolutely beautiful to see. We see the changes in colors on the trees and the way that the leaves fall, and we get to play in the leaves and all of that. So change is hard and it's rough, but it also is something that is incredibly beautiful.
Yeah. That's why fall's my favorite season, because it's just a reminder that sometimes it can be beautiful to let things go, even when it's hard, right? It's hard to let go of seasons of life, or, you're talking about back to school. I'm thinking it's hard for parents too. Like, I have a lot of anxiety around that. I have a kiddo going into second grade who has some challenges, and we never know what the school year is going to look like. And so just entering that and not knowing what's going to happen can be tough. And so just praying and thinking about all of the parents and kids and teachers, they've had a little break and now they're coming back to a new year as well. So a lot of change going on. But, as I think about, Rachel, what you were talking about with changes, and you're leaving something good and you're going to something new and not knowing what to expect, just the fact that we can be such creatures of habit and we get in our comfort zone. And why would we want to change that? Because we're comfortable here, right?
Yeah.
But God is a God who calls us out of our comfort and into something new all the time, right? And so think about the experiences that you would have missed had you stayed put, where you grew up and you never took these new job opportunities. You wouldn't have some of the relationships you have, the experience that you have, and I'm talking out of wisdom here from having gone through a lot of changes in life that were really hard. Jobs, churches, some hard church transitions, family dynamics. My marriage ended a number of years ago, and that change was just really, really difficult. But now, when I look back on those things, I remember how hard it was and how afraid I was. But now I look back and I see all the good that God has brought from it. Things that I wouldn't have experienced, people I wouldn't know, places I wouldn't be right now without those experiences. Some of them I chose, some of them I didn't choose. And so it's just a reminder that God has more for us, and we need to step out boldly, even if we're afraid to step out boldly and just trust that whatever change we're walking into, that he is in that with us.
Yeah.
You know?
And just as you're talking about that, I'm even thinking about when I left for college, and this has been a number of years ago now, but that was a little bit hard. I remember getting emotional. Like the morning I left for college, I get in my old beat up blue car and I'm driving off to Minnesota, and
I remember that car.
I got a little bit emotional, and it took me a while to adjust to college, even though it was good and I had a lot of fun. It took me a while to kind of adjust.
Mm-hmm.
But I think about all the things that God has brought out of that. I would not be here in this room having this conversation right now had I not made that decision and made that change and gone to college there. And it resulted in what I'm doing now and where I am now. And so, yeah, you trace those pathways back, and you can kind of see God's hand guiding you along, even through the change, even when it was kind of difficult at times.
Mm-hmm. Oof, this is going to make me cry. It's making me think about, there have been so many times in my life where I've gone through a lot of change. And I think when I think of the word change, the one experience that is so vivid in my mind when I think about it is the feeling of sitting in my empty apartment. Like that feeling of, you don't have your furniture yet, you're still figuring things out, you're still making the place your own. But that feeling, I remember when I moved here, I don't want to cry. Okay, so when I moved here, I was so excited and I was ready for this new phase of life that God was leading me into. But there was that fear of like, this doesn't feel like home yet. And it's that fear of, am I going to fit in? Am I going to, find people? Like, can I be accepted? Am I going to find friends and, found family and all of that? And like, it's the leaving behind so many people that I love and going into this new place because I know I've been called. But like, I remember sitting on the floor in my empty apartment and just like feeling this, it was so weird. I was feeling so grateful and also so scared at the same time. That is change.
Yeah.
That is literally what change feels like to me. And I look back on that, and I was actually talking to a friend about this. I was looking at old videos from when I had first moved here and looking at my empty apartment then and now what my apartment looks like now. And just the change that has happened in that past year is crazy. And not just the change in like, what my apartment looks like, but the change in me that has happened in that past year. It's crazy to look back on, and the growth that all of us have gone through in a year, 2 years, whatever. That's what change is. It's hard when you're going through it, and there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of anxiety. But then you get to that point where you can look back and say, wow, that was actually a really incredible change.
Yeah.
And I grew so much through that.
Here's the key there. Change forces us to grow.
Yeah.
Would we grow if we didn't have to experience some of the changes that we've been through? I mean, Josh, would you have grown in the ways you have if you didn't have to leave home and go to college? And Rachel, if you hadn't moved here, I've seen so much growth in you just from the time you came in the last year. You know what I mean? And I think of the things that I've gone through and the way that God has grown me in my faith, just personally as a human being, as a mother, just so many ways. And so I think maybe we need to look at change a little bit differently than we do instead of fearing it so much. I know it's hard, but to see it as an opportunity, like, okay, God is calling me to the next level. He's going to grow me. Maybe that would give us a little more courage when there's change happening. Not at the grocery store, but everywhere else, right?
Yeah, like what if we looked at change and said, okay, God, I'm ready to see you work.
Yeah.
What if we approached it that way? Would it change things?
Well, do you guys ever feel like there are people who are way better at change than you?
Yes.
I just, those people, and you probably know at least one of them, and they just, here's a small example, they rearrange their living room furniture like every 2 months just to do it. Just like, I need a change. Or there's certain people
they
who are
crave it.
Yeah, who are always moving around to different locations and like picking up and moving their whole lives. And I haven't ever really been a person like that. So that's somewhat foreign to me. I kind of, like you were talking about earlier, Jess, I like things to stay the same. I like to stay in my routine. I like to stay in my comfort zone. But as we've been talking about, you got to get out of that comfort zone to grow. And that doesn't mean that you can't ever have comfort or good things, but you can't just stay there the whole time.
Yeah. Be interesting to talk to someone like that and be like, do you feel that fear? Do you feel that anxiety every time? I'm sure they do, but they've found a way to overcome that.
Maybe
right?
they just embrace it.
Yeah. Just
They
to
practice
embrace
it by moving their furniture every 2 months.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Well, so I'm actually thinking of my mom specifically has said, I don't know how you do this. Like when I graduated college, I lived in Florida for 3 years and then I moved here. But then before that, when I was in college, one of the summers, it was summer of my sophomore year, I lived in Houston for a summer. And then I was in my senior year of college and I lived in New York City for a whole semester. Wow. So it was like we did Houston, New York, Florida, and now here. And so my mom was talking to me about that. It was like, I don't know how you have done that and all of that. And it's like, I don't know how I've done it. Like it's literally just been, I'm just taking one step in front of the other and going where I know God is calling me. And it's like, even though I've experienced all of the anxiety and the fear and is this really where God is calling me question? Even though going through all of that, I don't regret any of those changes that I have gone through because it has brought me to this point. So I think if I were to ask someone who probably is way better at handling change than I am, I think that would be what they would say is just taking it one step at a time and trusting in God's plan.
Yeah.
That's all we can do, really.
Afraid. Yeah. I'm just listening to her say, like, she felt all those things that we feel, but she followed God's call. And I'm thinking, how many opportunities have I maybe missed out on that God had for me because I was like, no, I can't do it. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't do it afraid. I couldn't do it afraid. So that's good advice. Just regardless of all of those emotions, which are very human, if you feel like God is saying, do this, do it afraid. Yeah.
Better to do it afraid than not do it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do one thing every day that scares you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Remember
no.
somebody saying that? That's like,
I don't like that.
anxiety, but it's good practice for change.
Oh, goodness.
Well, and we have this unique gift in that we're believers, we're followers of Jesus Christ, right? And so we feel all those things, but we know that we're following someone who doesn't change, that we're following someone who's constant, right? And so even though I'm just thinking of, okay, we're talking about like physical change or things like that, location change, but just the change that's happening in our world right now around us so quickly. Can't believe how fast the world is changing. Thank God that he doesn't change, right? Thank God that he says he's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And the hope that gives us, the peace that gives us, while the rest of the world is feeling all of that anxiety and all those emotions we were talking about, that we can have that anchor of peace for our soul when the world is changing so fast.
Yeah. To have something constant that reminds us over and over and over again, I am never going to change. He is never going to change. Because that's what we need. It's the cornerstone that we need when everything around us is in chaos.
Yeah.
And aren't we so incredibly blessed that we have a God that never changes? Well,
yeah. All right. Well,
questions
how
from
about
the lunchbox?
some questions from the lunchbox. These are going to be questions. We don't know which one is coming that we're going to try to answer here.
Oh, by the
We've
way,
got Josh's
yeah, Jess is showing off.
wannabe vintage metal boombox lunchbox.
Yeah, the boombox lunchbox, which I got specifically for the show because I didn't have a lunchbox.
Should
Very
I do a little
cool.
drum roll?
It's very much a vibe. All right, here we go. Question number 1. How are you embracing change in your life right now? Josh?
Put me on the spot there.
Sorry.
I don't know. I don't have a good answer to that because, as we've talked about, I sometimes tend to resist change. And I can't necessarily think of big changes going on in my life at the moment. I mean, so often it's like the little stuff day by day. And so I don't really have a specific answer to that one.
Okay, well, you need to work on that. No. Just kidding.
Do
We're
some
talking
changing,
about
Josh.
embracing it, and Josh is like, I'm not changing nothing right now.
I'm sure I am. I just don't. Like I said,
Yeah.
it's not like something huge has been
Nothing
thrust on me
profound.
lately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for me, I guess right now I'm kind of reflecting on change, if that counts, because it has officially been a year that I've been here in Minnesota. And so I think I've been reflecting a lot on how I have changed, how things in my life have changed. And I'm also in this season right now where a lot of family things are changing around me. I have some grandparents that are going through some health issues, and it's changing a lot for our family right now. And so I think the thing that I am clinging to in the middle of that change is that God is in control. And I think I'm just really, really relying on Him through the change right now. So.
Yeah, I don't have anything profound either, other than God is really changing my heart in some areas relating to motherhood. And I mentioned earlier, I've got a 7-year-old who just has some challenges when it comes to school and learning. And so with the new school year starting, that can bring so much anxiety and fear from me. And so God has just really been working on changing my heart to just kind of open my hands and to give him that situation. And to just trust, like he is over the summer, he's showing me that he's a part of that challenge, that he is, he's provided some opportunities. And so I'm just really being challenged by him to open my hands and give that fear to him and trust that he's got me and my kiddo in his hands and it's going to be okay. And that is hard for me because I like to hold on to things. Like I really like to hold on to things with tight hands. And I trust God, but also I need to have control of the situation. I'm sure there's people that can relate to that. And
I can relate to that.
Yeah, that just talking about changing, how he changes our hearts through different situations in our lives and our families, and helps us, uses situations, right? Hard situations to help us trust him more. So I'm kind of in that season of change right now. So, all right. How about another question? Okay, Rachel, what is a good way to encourage a friend or someone else who's struggling with change right now? You've just been through it, so how would you encourage someone else going through it?
Oh, my. Encourage someone going through change.
What are you going to say to them if they're struggling with it?
Well, I guess I would copy what my best friend told me when I had told her about all of the things that I was going through in this current season that I'm in with, my grandparents' health struggles and everything. And she had told me, she had said, where you are right, I don't want to cry. Okay.
Stop saying you don't want to cry and let yourself cry. Let's change that. It's okay to feel.
Where you are right now is where God has called you. And that is good, and you're growing where you're at. And because things are changing around you, it doesn't change the love that people have for you. She said it doesn't change the love that I have for you. And so I think if I were to encourage someone that was going through change, of just like, even though you're going through the hard stuff and you're going through a hard season and things are changing around you, God never stops loving you. And in the middle of that change, he is always with you. And there are people in your life that that love you so dearly and care about you so dearly. And that love will never change. So,
amen to that.
crying.
You have a wise friend.
Yeah. Okay, someone else talk.
Yeah, along with that, I think just reminding that friend, you're going to get through this. It's one step at a time. It's one day at a time. And so often with change, especially when it's a hard change that we didn't ask for, it's like, okay, when is this going to be over? Well, the only way is through. You have to go through it, and it's one step at a time and one day at a time. And I think, too, just sitting with that friend and being with them and being like, hey, I'm going to be here for you even during this change, and you're going to get through this, and it is going to get better.
Yeah, that you're not going through this alone thing is huge. When I've gone through hard changes in my life, there were people who just sat there and felt it with me. And that was so huge. And I think, too, just the reminder that it's temporary, right? I mean, the difficulty of change is temporary, right? And that's when the good things start happening, is after the change is made and God gets to use that in your life. So just hang on there and walk through it. Like Josh said, the only way is to get through it.
Yeah.
And just know that you're not going to feel this fear or uncertainty forever.
Well, and I was just thinking too, Jess, as you were saying that, yeah, we're changing, and there's a verse in 2 Corinthians that talks about, therefore we do not lose heart, because even though our outer self, like our body, is wasting away, changing in a lot of ways, it's hard to see ourselves get older, but like our inner self is being renewed day by day. So it's almost that juxtaposition of, well, yeah, negative change in some ways as we see ourselves getting older, but the positive change of God is renewing our spirit and bringing us closer to Him step by step and day by day.
Yeah. And 2, the Bible talks about there being a season for everything, and there is a season for change, right? And then that's just one of the many seasons that God gives us in our lives. So it's just temporary, and hang in there. All right, one more question. Let's see if we for sure have time for one more, maybe 2. Why do you think the Bible emphasizes multiple times that God doesn't change? We've talked a little bit about that, how He stays the same yesterday and today and forever.
Yeah, just like you were talking about earlier, Jess, it gives us an anchor, because it is a reality that everything is changing around us. And that can be a really hard reality. But then if you can look, like, kind of as, in a sense, the winds and the waves of change are swirling around you, you have this anchor that God does not change and that He's faithful. And that I can look back and say, you know what? God was the same when I was 5 years old as He is now as I'm 34. Like, he has not changed. His plans for me are still good, and He's not going to abandon me. He's not going to forsake me.
Yeah, I agree with that. And 2, even just with the world right now, telling us what we should believe and what's right and what's wrong in their own eyes, just trusting that God has not changed His plan for the world. He has not changed His view of us as humans, and His plan for our individual lives, and we can have that kind of foundation as well. He's an anchor. He's a foundation for truth and hope. And when we question things, we question ourselves, we question the world, we question His plan, we can always know that He is the same all the time, and that He's not wavering like we're wavering. And there's just something so peace-giving about that. It's just so comforting about that, because when everyone else around us is changing, that can feel like, well, should I do that? Should I be doing this? Should I think this instead of what I know? We can trust that God has laid that foundation already, and He's not planning on changing it, so we can stand firm on that as well.
Yeah. I think we have those constant reminders in the Bible because we need them. I think that that's the whole reason why they're in there, is because we need those reminders. We knew for literally forever things were going to change constantly all the time. And so, like Josh said, we need that anchor that God will never change. And even though there is chaos all around us and there's so many things that are happening and things are constantly changing, God never will change. And like you said, Jess, there is a peace in that. There's a comfort in that. And when there is chaos around us, what we need is peace. And we can find ultimate peace in Jesus.
Yeah. All right, one more question. We have time. Okay. Describe a time where change was hard for you and how you got through it. I know we did a little bit of that already, but
I don't want to cry again.
Rachel's kind of already described that. Unless you have a different example, we'll move on to Josh.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, I mentioned my college transition to college life and leaving Wisconsin and moving to Minnesota for the first time. So that'd be one. Another one I think about is when I had a relationship end, and it was hard. And it took me quite a while, like, to move past that change, because it's just such a tough thing when like somebody who's a big part of your life suddenly isn't anymore and you're trying to move forward. And I think something that helped me get through it, I mean, time being one thing, I think friends being another thing. And it is kind of cool seeing some of the sweetness that God has brought into my life even after that. And some of the friends God has brought into my life, and some of the just amazing memories that God has brought into my life. And I even remember a certain point when I was praying about this and like, God, you got to help me with this. And he did. And he brought me through that, and he brought me to the other side. And so I think getting through it, relying on God, relying on friends, and just giving it time.
Yeah, that's good. About 8 years ago, I found out that my marriage was ending, and was not my choice. My plan was to be in that marriage till death do us part, right? And that was not how it went. And so I had spent 25 years in a relationship with the same person that I was married to. I had raised 3 children, almost fully raised 3 children. And then all of a sudden, all of that was getting turned upside down. And I remember just thinking, I'm not going to survive this. I can't. How am I going to live by myself? How am I going to support myself? All of these fears. And it took a long time to just really trust God with that. But I don't want to sit on that, because that was the biggest time of change in my entire life. When I look back now, 8, 9 years, whatever it's been since that happened, and I see I could write a book about the ways that God took care of me and provided for me. Just the wow God stories, and just the simple ways that he sustained me, provided for me. He saw back then what was going to happen and provided even just, changes in my job that were better, and all these different things. My housing, he provided housing that was like, wow, it's like it literally showed up, for me. All these things that I was afraid of what I was going to do, God provided them. And so I just want to say to you right now today, listening, if you are in a time of change where you are just feeling full of fear and uncertainty and you don't know how you're going to survive this, that I can tell you 100%, having been there in many different ways, but that was probably the biggest one in my life, that God is walking through that with you. And things are going to change, yes, but you're going to be okay. He's going to provide for you. He's going to take care of you. He's going to comfort you. He's going to bring the right people into your life to help you through that time. And you're going to look back one day, and I know that's hard to hear when you're in the middle of the pain. I know it is. But you're going to look back one day and you're going to be like, wow, God brought me through that in ways I never could have imagined or foreseen. And your trust and your faith in Jesus is going to be stronger than it's ever been before. So I just feel like someone needs that reminder, that hope right now, that it feels scary right now, but God's not going to desert you. He has said in the Bible, I will never leave you or forsake you. Instead of a wedding ring now, I wear a ring that has that verse on it. I will never leave you or forsake you. He will not leave you alone in this. Just want you to know.
That was so beautiful. I'm crying.
This is an emotional
I don't know. I'm
episode
just
for
having an
Rachel.
emotional day.
Well, amen. Jess,
Wow.
thanks
Yes,
so much
amen.
for sharing that and sharing your heart, because there's somebody listening who needs to hear that. And we want to thank you for listening to Season 2, Episode 1 of the Lunch Break Podcast. By the way, you can always go back to Season 1 and stream all 6 episodes of that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and you can watch it on the Spirit 92.9 YouTube channel. Hey, if you like the podcast, please rate us 5 stars. That helps us to get this out to other people who might enjoy listening as well. But thank you again for listening, and we will talk with you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.